Echoes from the Temple, a show exploring Thessalian traditions and ideas.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Echoes from the Temple. We're here today with Justin again. We don't have a guest speaker today. It's just me and Justin today. And we're going to talk about the Thessalian concept of the Theoi. Theoi is a word that means essentially gods. It includes both masculine and feminine. It's a neuter term. And what exactly the Theoi is and what exactly the Theoi means to Thessalians. But to keep up with tradition, we always start with a toast. So let me get these shots of Sambuca ready here for me and Justin. For those of you out there who don't know what Sambuca is, it is the Italian equivalent of ouzo, which is a black licorice flavored liqueur, and it's absolutely divine. So, Steniamus. Oh yeah. Had to get a new bottle. Oh, that's good stuff. All right. Let me hide these shot glasses because I'll take more than one if I have to.
But you want to the concept, talking about things.
Yeah. Well, there's two Theoi for each of us, so we need to do two more. Maybe three. And then floor, not four, floor.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty strong stuff. But, all right, so Theoi. Yeah.
Or just people comment.
Okay, so they can hear us good? Last time we had a problem with the microphone. I was going to ask.
Yeah, I think everybody can hear us good.
All right, good deal. All right, so let's talk about Theoi. So, Thessalian tradition is based on ancient Greek religion, which is known as Hellenism. Thessalian religion is what's referred to as Hellenistic, which means kind of like the Greeks. So it's based on Greek, but it's not exclusively Greek, so it is a bit eclectic.
Everyone's saying yes.
All right, it is a bit eclectic in that it borrows certain things from different traditions, different cultures, but primarily it's 99% Greek. And one of the things that we focus on, one of our first things when a person becomes a member of Thessaly, of the Church of Thessaly, what they are encouraged to read some information and some stuff that we have available for them to understand exactly what we are, what we represent. One of our key factors is the establishment of temples and sacred grounds. The sacred grounds are referred to as temenos, as singular, and temeni as plural, and that is a sacred precinct where a temple or a specific deity or multiple deities reside. And but one of the things that is unique to Church of Thessaly is the idea of the Theoi, which is the first ritual that a neophyte, and for those of you, I know we have a lot of people that aren't familiar with our terminology, a neophyte is a Greek word that means newly planted. So a neophyte is somebody who's new to the religion, and they come in and they're trying to establish their roots. And one of those roots is your Theoi. It's one of the first things that you learn. And the way that the Theoi comes about is that it is part of our belief system and our tradition that every individual soul has a divine ruler or a set of rulers. And essentially what it is that if you think of it in terms of your physical birth required your mother and your father. So you receive 50% of your DNA from your mother, 50% of your DNA from your father. And that creates you, makes you a unique individual, physically. Your soul, which comes in our belief system from the divine source known as the One, and travels through the universe, essentially, is what we believe. Now, these are terms that I don't want you to think in terms of like, there's this soul flying through space from some unknown source coming into the earth, and from infinite. You arise from the earth. Your soul comes from it, but it's viewed in the concept of your soul emerges as part of the cosmos, and the energy that created your soul has traveled through the universe and manifested on this planet as you. And as that energy travels, it goes through our solar system. And this is where the idea of your astrological signs come from, that your soul picks up these specific traits depending on where the planets were aligned at the time that you were born. And that creates your astrological signs or your astrological chart from the time that you were born. That astrological sign affects your physical being as well as your mental and your what comes to be known as your persona, your character. But your soul is divine in its origins, and it is the result of a combination of two energies that are divine in nature. And as that soul travels through, it comes in as a combination of two. So every human being that exists today, whether they're Thessalian or not, in our belief, their soul, their true self, is the result of a combination of both a god and a goddess. And those, just like a mother and father. And just like a mother and father, you as an individual do not get to choose who your Theoi are. They are revealed to you in a ritual that is known as the Rite of the Circle. And it is the first ritual that every Thessalian will undergo. And it is viewed as an initiation ceremony, but it's not initiation in the sense of that you are being imparted with anything other than a revelation of who your divine parents are. And this is done through an oracle reading, which is specific to Thessalian tradition. It is the Oracle of Hermes, and the Oracle of Hermes will reveal who your Theoi are. And there are 16 different gods and goddesses that will manifest in as your Theoi, and it's limited to those 16 because our oracle has 16 specific patterns, and each one of those patterns represents a specific deity. So
Usually a very exciting. It's usually a very exciting event because this is their first step as members of our group to find out who their Theoi are, which they're super excited, and all the other members are super excited. We all play the guessing game beforehand, trying to figure out. We actually have 2 new members in a week or so who are going to find out their Theoi for the first time. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Oh yeah, we have bets going a lot of times as to who, because a lot of times a person's character will show expressions of the Theoi, and once you get to understand the gods, you start to understand why they pick certain people. And then there's some people that show absolutely no traits, and those are the people that are actually most interesting to watch, because as they progress and learn, they start to realize exactly why those are their Theoi. One of the ones that comes to mind the most is Kent. If you remember Kent, and Kent was an old member, and Kent's actually a woman, and she had Hestia as her mother, as her spiritual mother, a divine mother, and she was confused as all could be, because she's like, I am the most undomestic person that I know. She's like, I don't cook, I don't do anything like that, because Hestia is associated with the home and the hearth, and cooking and all of those types of home energies. And come to find out, once she started cooking and started doing things in honor of Hestia, she started to realize how much she enjoyed it. And everyone would look so forward to camp, bringing food and bringing her cider. The cider she would make.
Oh yeah.
That cider she would make was unreal at how delicious it was. And she just was really good at it, and she started to realize that it's not that she wasn't a domestic person, it's just that she never tried any of it before. And once she tried it, she realized how much she enjoyed it and how natural it came to her. And so that was Hestia's energy manifesting through her. And it was a wonderful thing to watch. And it's also, like Justin said, it's a very exciting time.
And then you got people like me.
Yeah, and then Justin sitting right here. You know, he got Hephaestus, and I instantly saw why. You know, it was the last one that he wanted because, you know, Hephaestus is the god of work. And he's like, I don't want to work. I don't want to have to be a worker my rest of my life. But he's really good at creating things with his hands, and he's good at building things. And to top it all off, he had an injury where he broke both of his feet, so now he walks with a limp, which is what Hephaestus does. So it's almost like...
I was branded.
Yeah, he was branded by Hephaestus. He's like, now you're mine, damn it. So, but, yeah, so it's always a very exciting time to see that happen. And where the concept of the Theoi came from was through the reading of the Iamblichus. Let me see. Let me find here. Right. So, in Iamblichus's book of theurgy, which is known as the Mysteries, chapter 2, verse 6, Iamblichus states that the gods and greater kinds, meaning higher spirits, higher divinities, differ in the gifts each allots to the soul of the initiate. The gods grant, quote, health of body, virtue of soul, purity of intellect, and in sum, an elevation to our proper principles. Again, the gods are said to illuminate the soul with light. The gifts of the archangels are inferior to these, and their illumination is weaker. Those of the angels are even more inferior, and so on. The higher the divinity to which the soul is attached, the greater the rewards. So, before anybody gets confused at the terminology of angels, keep in mind that the word angels comes from the Greek word angelos, which means messenger. That was a word that was appropriated by Christianity to represent exactly what it represents in our religion as well, that these are messengers of the divine. So the angels is not specifically a Christian term. It was used in ancient times. It's the same with demon. The original Greek word for demon is D-A-E-M-O-N or I-N or L-O. I've seen it spelled a lot of different ways. And we pronounce it as daemon to kind of differentiate the idea of demon. But I do believe that the original pronunciation is demon. But we've kind of altered that to kind of separate between the two. So the daemon is a lesser spirit. And every person is believed to have not only their Theoi, but their daemon. So what exactly does the Theoi do? The Theoi are your protectors. They're your parents. They're your spiritual parents. They watch over and protect you during your learning process. They are the ones that help guide you in the right direction. And the first year of training in Thessaly, you will devote a lot of attention to your Theoi. And this coincides with our teaching that our purpose for religion is not worship. We don't believe that our deities, our gods and goddesses benefit anything from us because they're higher beings. That's like saying if I shine a flashlight at the sun, I'm helping the sun out. The sun doesn't need my help to make light. It does it really good on its own. So the gods are there for our benefit. We benefit from them. Now, they don't exist for our benefit, but we can benefit from them. And so the purpose of religion for us is to attune. It's attunement. It's learning our place in the world, but also one of the key things that separates us from a lot of the monotheistic religions is that we believe that every human being is inherently divine, but that because our souls have been encased in material, in matter, in physical form, they become what's called inotropic, which means inverted. Our souls become inverted. We become confused as to our divine origin, and we confuse our existence with the physical world. And this was summed up once by an ancient Greek philosopher, and for whatever reason it's escaping me right now who exactly it is. But he said that you are a soul carrying around a corpse. And I believe it was Epictetus. I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
I think so.
I think it was Epictetus that said that. You are a soul carrying around a corpse. And that was evolved into the concept of you are not a physical being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a physical experience. And that is the mindset that Thessalians have, that we are essentially divine and that our purpose in life is to liberate ourselves from physicality. But because we exist in a physical world, because we exist, it was Epictetus.
Yes. Marcus Aurelius quoted him in giving, and then said,
Okay, yeah, so it was Epictetus that said that. One of the things about it is that liberation from materiality doesn't mean that the material world is evil. It doesn't mean the material world is bad, because we believe that everything that exists as an expression of the divine, and that through manifestation, as the power and the energy of creation comes from this one source, this divine one that we call, that is not deity. We don't pray to the one. We acknowledge the one as the source of creation, but it exists beyond any comprehension that we have. The best that we can do is try to understand it, but in our limited space, we can never truly grasp its greatness. So this power gets diverted and gets split apart like white light through a prism. It gets divided. And as it gets divided, materiality comes into play. And the energy becomes material. But it's still part of that divine source. And so the gods are an expression of the divine one, split into different aspects, split into different ideas. And so for us, all divine beings from every pantheon that ever existed are all the same, essentially. They have different flavors depending on the culture and the way that that culture interpreted the energy that they were receiving and the information that they were receiving. So the gods for us can be expressed in any culture, in any religion, in any way, provided that it conforms to the concept that it is a division of the one source. And I know that gets a bit confusing, and we'll probably discuss that a bit more when we do a lecture or a show on emanationism and how that manifests. But for today, we're going to concern ourselves with Theoi. So all of the gods of Olympus that we've worked with, I hate to use that word, that we work with, that we try to commune with, our purpose is to try to absorb that energy. And so that occurs in 4 phases. So when a neophyte receives their Theoi, when their Theoi choose them or reveal themselves to that particular initiate, there's a ritual that is performed daily, and it's called your daily devotion. And during that daily devotion, you acknowledge and try to commune, and you leave offerings. And this was a question that was brought up by Ebony's dad. If you're listening in, Carl, thanks for the input. Was asking at the last Gardelia festival that we had, why did we offer food to the gods? If they're not physical, then why do we offer food? And so this comes about from, there's 4 stages that we acknowledge or that we've recognized in the progress of the soul. And that the first one is adoration. And so we adore or give our adoration to the powers outside of us, the objective energies of the gods. And these we visualize in certain ways. We visualize the gods as appearing in a certain form. But we understand that that form is not them. We know that the gods aren't sitting on top of Olympus as a physical being. They exist in a level. It makes it easier for us to connect to it, that energy, if we give it a form.
Kind of like when we personify inanimate objects to better understand or connect with.
Right. Who hasn't named their car? They've had an old car and they call it Bessie or whatever, and the car is running bad, and you're like, come on, Bessie, just get me where I need to go, that kind of stuff. We all do that from time to time. Boats especially get names, girls' names especially for boats and stuff like that. We name things as a way to identify with them and make them personal to us, and that's exactly what happens with the gods. The gods are universal. The deities are universal. But we can connect to them on a personal level if we objectify, give them a form that we can relate to. But we also need to keep in mind and understand that that is not exactly how they are, okay? But it does help, especially in the beginning phases. As you progress, you learn that that's not necessarily how they manifest themselves. So regardless of all that, the first one is adoration, and that is a recognition that you as a human being are not the center of the universe, that you recognize that there is a power outside of you, an objective power that you can connect to. So that's the first step. That's the adoration. And then after that is absorption. So by recognizing that power and giving an offering of food, okay, so what you have to understand is that this is a law of cause and effect. If you give something, it creates a void. And the universe has a tendency to fill voids. It doesn't like a void. Just the natural course of energy does not like a void. So it will seek to fill that void. So if you give that offering, whatever it may be, to this particular energy, that energy will seek to fill that void. It will flow into you, and you absorb that energy. Once you do that repeatedly over a period of time, you begin the third phase, which is assimilation. That energy starts to change you, like a tuning fork. You strike a tuning fork and you move it across the strings of a piano. When it hits the same chord, it will vibrate from a distance, that particular chord. And so that becomes the assimilation. The more you connect to that divine power by giving these offerings and absorbing that energy, it will shift your energy. It will change your energy, and you will become more and more attuned to that divine power. And that leads into the final stage, which is apotheosis, which is when you fully and completely become one with that divine power. That divine power now lives inside of you. That is when the mystical side of things begin. A person can be a Thessalian for years and never achieve apotheosis because they may not be ready for it. It all depends on how receptive you are to that energy. Each person is an individual. Each person is different. So some people readily absorb energy, and some people it's a struggle. So that's the 4 phases. So it's adoration, absorption, assimilation, apotheosis, or apotheosis. That is the purpose of our faith. Our faith, as Plotinus, who's one of the philosophical giants of our tradition, stated, is our goal is not to worship God, but to become gods. Our goal is to commune with the powers that created us. That's our goal, to elevate our souls to a higher level so that we can help to bring other people to a better understanding of who they are. And this is done, this was done by Plotinus as philosophy alone, by simple contemplation. But it became very eclectic and very classes, honestly, in his time period, which was in the time of ancient Rome. It became something that only the elite did, because the average person couldn't read, and the average person, had to work all the time, and they couldn't do it, just like it is today. And so Iamblichus, who was a student of Porphyry, who was a student of Plotinus, found a way to incorporate traditional ancient religion into the philosophy, which is exactly what Church of Thessaly does. It is the system as closely as we can get it to what Iamblichus was doing by combining religious ritual with philosophy, with an understanding, to create mystical states of mind that will elevate the individual souls to a higher understanding. And by doing that, we create a better life for ourselves and for the people around us. Even your neighbors who may not know anything about you will benefit from being next to you if you achieve apotheosis. If you achieve that, that energy will radiate outward, and people around you will find themselves luckier. They'll find things happening for them that are better. You will exist as a force of good in the world. And that is the ultimate goal. Very few people achieve it. It is a lifetime, and it's not something that you achieve and then hold on to. You will achieve apotheosis or communion with the one or with the gods or whatever it may be, whatever higher source, and it'll last for a fraction of a second. But it changes your energy pattern instantly, and the energy pattern never really goes back. But you can't hold on to that state of union for an extended period of time because we're physical beings. But the offerings that are given for that specific reason. They're given so that creates that void. It creates the void, and then the void has to be filled. Now, your Theoi are the ones that you'll do this to for the first year. By the end of a year, you should have a pretty good communion with your Theoi. What gets confused with a lot of newcomers when they come into the tradition is they come in with a preconceived idea a lot of times of who they want to pray to. You're not limited to your Theos. Our monthly religious cycle requires that once a month we honor a specific Olympian throughout the year. So you will commune with all of the Olympians, including your Theoi, and you will also, during festivals, commune with other gods and goddesses as well. This is not a situation where it's like, oh, well, I have to pray to only these two or the other gods are going to get jealous. That's not how it works. You commune with as many as you possibly can, because the more you commune with all of them, the more whole you're going to be. Because remember, all of the gods are only fractions of the divine one. So the more of these deities that you commune with, that you achieve apotheosis with, the closer you're getting to the actual ultimate source of all things. And when that happens, if that ever happens, you become a divine being. Iamblichus achieved this twice, and he was able to do things that were unreal, according to legend. Now, a lot of people will look at the things that he says that were attributed to him. It was said that he could levitate many, many feet off the ground when he was praying, when he was in meditation and prayer. He was able to summon spirits to physical manifestation, so that people who were not initiates and not were able to see them. He was said to be able to do all sorts of miraculous things, healing people, all those sorts of things. And but this was somebody who had achieved an extremely high level of apotheosis. And so that is our ultimate goal, is to become that way. And he was referred to, and still is referred to, as the divine Iamblichus. So I do believe that the Emperor Julian referred to him as the savior of the Hellenic faith. He was viewed extremely highly by the Hellenists and the Hellenistic people of the time. Even in his own life, he had achieved that level of greatness. So your Theoi are the stepping stone to a much greater understanding. But the Church of Thessaly is designed to understand, our system is designed to understand that not everybody is looking for that. That level of growth requires a certain level of spiritual maturity that some people may never achieve in this lifetime. Fortunately for us, we also acknowledge the idea and the theory of reincarnation, which for us is not really a theory. For us, it's been proven time and again. But you reincarnate if you're initiated into Thessaly, and you go into these initiations and you receive this divine elevation of your soul. When you pass over, your soul, we perform certain ceremonies, and then after that, whenever a child is born within our ranks, within our church, the oracle is consulted to see if that soul is indeed somebody who's returned to continue their training. So those are things that are done here in the way that we view things. So this is not just this lifetime, but multiple lifetimes of trying to achieve this so that we can elevate humanity to a higher level of understanding of our divine concepts, of our connection to the divine. The other thing about it is that we view it in a very universal way. This isn't something that is exclusive to Thessalians. We don't care, honestly, what religion you are. We feel that these things apply to you, even though we don't proselytize and we don't try to say that everybody has to conform to what we believe. But when we look at people who are other religions, we understand that, and a lot of times we can see where their blockages are at, where their misunderstandings are coming from. And if, it's not necessarily our place to try to show them or try to say to them, you're in error, because this may be a lesson that they need to learn in this lifetime. And that's not our place. But if a person comes to us and they say, hey, I'm kind of lost in my spirituality, what can I do? What would you suggest? Then we will give our teachings to them, and we'll tell them what we think about where they are and what they should be doing. And it's up to them if they decide they want to do it. But the Theoi are crucial because they're your protectors. They're your guides throughout your training and your progress. But after a certain level of communion with your Theoi, you can choose at that particular point if you want to continue to learn more and move into the more mystical aspects of our teachings and start communing with other deities as well. You can also decide if you want to devote yourself to one specific deity. You may have, through the course of festivals and monthly rituals, determine that you would like to become a priest or a priestess of a particular deity. Then we will put you in contact with someone who is devoted to that particular deity as a priest or a priestess. And if we don't have someone who's devoted to them, we have information and specific initiations for all of them that can be given to that person, and they can start to establish their clergy status to that particular deity. Now, one of the things that we talked about this before, the difference between a devotee and a member of clergy or a priest or priestess, is one of the key factors is you have to have a temple. So any person who decides that they want to be a priest or a priestess of a specific deity, or even 2 or 3 deities, doesn't have to be just one. One of the first prerequisites is that you have to create a temenos and a temple for that deity or those deities. And you have to perform ceremonies and festivals and services to the community. So, say for example, I know Justin and Jessica at the Cladaria Temenos, which is devoted to Demeter and Apollo, they hold the yearly Thesmophoria festivals, which are sacred to Demeter. They're also working on reestablishing the Eleusinian mysteries for Demeter, and also the Delphic Oracle for Apollo. Those are things that they're working on. They have a temple building that is being put together, devoted to those, and they have a sacred ground devoted to those where we hold festivals. We just held our Thargelia festival, which is an Apollo festival there. So they are doing that work. For the sovereign Temenos, for us, it is Hermes and Hecate, and we offer initiations into the mysteries of those particular deities. We offer the Hermantic Oracle, as well as the monthly rituals for all of the Olympians as well. So those are all things that are required for that status. For to say that you have your Temenos and that you are clergy, you have to provide services for the community as a whole. You have to be able to train people, you have to be able to teach people, you have to have a temple where sacred rites are performed and offerings are given. If we have a person in our Temenos who wants to, or if the oracle reveals that this person needs to commune with Apollo or Demeter, we will direct them to the Cladari or Temenos to leave their offerings at that temple and that shrine, because that's where it should be left. Sort of like a pilgrimage. And this is how it was done in ancient times as well. If they are unable to do that, like if they're from out of state, or if anybody from out of state wants to leave an offering and have a prayer for Apollo or Demeter or Hecate or Hermes or any other deity that the Temenos honors, they can leave a offering, or they can leave a monetary offering that we would then use to go buy the offerings or to give the offerings, and then do it on that person's behalf. That was also something that was done in ancient times, especially by rulers who wouldn't be able to travel or leave their kingdom for extended periods of time. They would send an envoy with offerings, especially to Delphi, with gifts for the god or the goddess or whoever it may be, and talk to the clergy at that temple and say, this is from such and such ruler, and he wants to know, or she wants to know, does this particular god or goddess approve of this particular action, or they just want to leave it as a thanks offering because they prayed to this particular deity and they got what they wanted, so they're leaving this as a thanks offering to the deity. So those are things that happen even till today for us. So the Theoi are crucial to the development of the soul of the new neophyte, of the new initiate, and we get a lot of groans at the beginning when they get their daily ritual. It's like, this is your daily devotion, and they're like, well, do I have to do it every day? And it's called the daily devotion.
Yes, Jared.
Huh?
Yes, Jared.
Yes, Jared. And it's not that expensive either. You leave wine and you leave bread or crackers or some sort of a bread offering and incense. And I think we calculated it comes out to like about $1, less than $1 a day, for you to do it every day. So, you're looking at about, $300 a year for you to commune with the divine powers. Is pretty inexpensive when you think about the benefits that are going to come from it. So one of the interesting things that happens a lot, we're talking about leaving offerings, food offerings, and things like that, is the wine, and how the gods will let you know, how those energies will let you know whether or not they like the offering that you're giving. And one of the things that I always find interesting about it is when you think in terms of whether or not they like it, it is whether or not that energy, that offering, because every physical object vibrates to a certain frequency. So there's some things that are attuned to deities more than others. And in theurgy, in Iamblichus' system, these are known as symbola or synthemata. these are things that are linked to those particular energies, those particular deities. And so when, if, like, say, for example, the majority of the Olympians love red wine as an offering. Sweet. It's pretty much universal. But Poseidon likes white wine, and he also likes beer. And we know that because when we leave specific types of wine, like if you'll leave him red wine, a lot of times that wine will mold very quickly, or bugs will...
I'm saying it happened the same day.
Yeah, it can happen the same day. Bugs will infest it, or it will mold over. And it's because it doesn't fit well with that energy. It's something that doesn't vibrate to his energy. And it depends on brand. It can go as far as different types of brands of wine. Like, it can get very specific through trial and error. And this is 30 years of experimentation with this that we've come up to these things. How we found out Hermes likes butterscotch. You know, butterscotch candy, he loves them. You know, some people think that's silly when you think about it, but he loves butterscotch candies. Don't ask me why, but when you leave them for him, he just dries them out really fast. Bread, crackers, things like that will dry out. They'll mummify. Things that are left tend not to rot when you leave them for the gods, because that energy is being, it's syncing up, and it's that divine energy touches the material object, and the material object is actually elevated to a higher level by that energy, so that it doesn't rot. And this happens during katachi, during divine possession. When you are touched by the divine, if the divine energy replaces your persona, takes your character out, and enters your body into your vessel, and uses your body to manifest itself, you will be impervious to injury. You will be able to do things and move in ways that normally a human being can't. You will accomplish things that can't be accomplished outside of that particular thing. So it elevates your materiality to a higher level. You become more divine. And the same thing happens with offerings. Wine, this is one that gets them all the time. You can literally watch wine go away, like almost like they're drinking it out of the glass. You pour it in the glass, you come back an hour later, and that glass is less than it was before. I know Ebony at one time for Hermes put wine in a glass, and she poured wine every day in a glass, and she didn't have to empty that glass out for, I want to say it was over 2 months, because it would literally empty out so quickly that she could just keep pouring it in, and it would just keep going out, like as soon as she was pouring it in. And you can say it's evaporation, but if you leave another glass out in the same area and not leave it as an offering, that doesn't happen. We've experimented with that. We've tested it, and those things happen. You know, those things
We'll
are.
do that around Dionysus.
Oh yeah, Dionysus. Man. I don't even want to. Yeah, he gobbles that stuff up. You know, and a lot of new members they notice it quickly, and they'll call or they'll text. They'll be like, "Hey, this is freaking weirding me out, man." And it's like, but it's a good sign. So whenever you leave an offering and it starts to mold or it starts to mildew quickly, then it means that it's not accepted. We have in the Sovereign Toninos the first pomegranate that was ever offered to Demeter during the Thesmophoria, and that was 30 years ago. That pomegranate's still there. It's completely mummified. It's never rotted. It's still there. And it's been outside, inside. It's been left out on an altar. It's been shared. It's been passed around. And people have touched it. And it's considered a very sacred object to us. But it's still here. And it's not showing any signs of going away. So those are things that absolutely happen when the connection and the attunement between the physical world and the divine world actually does manifest. So the Theoi are very crucial, like I said, to the progress of the neophyte in coming into the church and into their spiritual practices. And they'll hear me constantly tell them if they start having problems and they're like, oh man, I'm struggling here, this is not going right. Are you doing your dailies? Well, you know, it's so hard sometimes. I forgot to do it, and I just got out of the practice. And, okay, start doing it. Start doing it. And it's not because the gods are punishing you. That's the key thing you have to keep in mind. A lot of times when things go bad, we say, oh, it looks like the gods are punishing me. That's not what happens. In our belief system, only good things come from the gods. There's no negative that comes from the gods. Now, there are some spirits of punishment, but it's not the gods. Those are lesser spirits of punishment, and those are brought on by ourselves through our own behavior. But when you are attuned to the gods, you are not subject as much to the whims of chance. Your life isn't a Russian roulette game where you might have a good day and you might have a bad day. The more that you're attuned to the gods, the more smoothly things are going to manifest in your life. The more good things are going to happen to you. The more progress is going to come to you. And when you don't do your devotions, and you don't do your offerings, and you don't do the festivals, and you don't do all the things that attune you to those energies, you lose that connection. That connection gets weaker and weaker. And as you get weaker and weaker, you start to lose the benefits of being in touch with that energy. So it's kind of like, if you want to see, you need to have light. If you turn out all the lights and start running into shit and hurting yourself, well, it's not because the light's mad at you. It's because you don't have the light on. Turn the light on and you'll be able to see.
I like that.
Yeah. Turn the light on and you'll be able to see. And that's why you do your devotion. That's why we lead the offering. That's why we do the things that we do. Because otherwise you're just blind, going through the world and hoping that you land somewhere that's going to be beneficial to you. Don't plan on good things. Make them happen. Make them happen by attuning to these divine energies and specifically what you want. So if you are having trouble in your love life, you go to Aphrodite. Well, that'd be more like your sex life. If you're looking for a committed relationship, you would go to Hera. Hera rules commitment and marriage. If you're looking for a spice up your sex life a little bit and broaden your horizons, you go to Aphrodite. And you do the rituals, and you do the offerings, you do the prayers, you do all of these, especially Tamarites. Tamarites are extremely powerful for us, and that's like a prayer, devotional prayer that lasts for a specific period of time that you do every day, almost like a daily devotion. You do it for a specific period of time, and at the end of that period of time, you should have seen a manifestation of what you're asking for. Right. And so those rituals are extremely powerful, and that's what you attune to. So one of the beauties of a polytheistic religion is that you can fine-tune what you want by attuning to those specific energies. So if I need a job, who am I going to go to? I'm going to go to Hephaestus, because he's the god of work. So you go to Hephaestus and you say, I'm going to leave these offerings for Hephaestus, and I'm going to do this ritual for Hephaestus because I need this job. It's not Hephaestus running around trying to find you a job. It's you attuning to his energy, and that energy will guide you to the right place. You might be driving down the road and see a sign that says now hiring, and be like, I'm going to try that. Pull in, boom, next thing you know, you got a job. Okay? It might be you're driving down the road and you're like, I'm going to take a different way home today for whatever reason, just randomly. I think I'm going to take a different way home. You take that road, boom, there's the sign, now hiring. Holy shit, let me pull in, see, bam, you got a job. That's how it manifests itself. It guides you in ways that are very, very subtle, and it seems like it might just be coincidence. And any scientist out there will tell you, well, that's just coincidence. But when you take into consideration, and I say this all the time, the mathematical probability of those things happening are pretty much zero, okay? Just from a chance point of view. The fact that we're even here is phenomenal, okay? It shouldn't even happen, all right? So if you stop and you think about it, stop and think about what had to happen in your life, just your life, for you to be listening in to this show right now. All of the things that had to happen for you to be here today, the good and the bad. Now, take that into consideration and consider all of the things that had to happen in my life for me to be here doing this show. All of the things that had to happen in Justin's life for him to be here listening to this show and being part of this show. All of that. What is the mathematical, scientific probability of all of that? It's a number that can't probably even be expressed. So it goes beyond the realm of chance in that there's something there that guided it. And we believe that it's your Theoi. Your Theoi, whether you recognize them, whether they've revealed themselves to you, whether you know it or not, have guided you through your life. And people who are disconnected or completely closed off to their Theoi tend to be more negative, more aggressive, more angry, because they're not in touch with their divine principles. And that is the expression of negative religious sentiment. I know that there's a lot of times, and we were talking about this earlier, where I get kind of frustrated with some practitioners of Christianity in that they seem to be very oppressive and angry and always trying to force people to do things. But this to us just shows a disconnection from something that's truly divine. And I stated in another show, there's Christians that I absolutely think are wonderful people, but that's because they have a connection to a divine source. They may recognize that divine source as their God. We may recognize that divine source as a totally different God. You know, for us, Jesus in a lot of ways is a manifestation of a lot of Dionysian energy and a lot of Mithraic energy for us, if we were to look at it from that perspective. But we don't adhere to any kind of that faith. We have our own way of communing. We don't use their methods to commune, we use our methods to commune. And so we can look at other religions and see the similarities, but it's when a religion becomes negative towards others that we feel, or divisive towards others, that we feel they've lost their connection to anything that's truly divine, because only good comes from the divine. Nothing negative comes from the divine. The divine comes from our disconnection. The negative comes from our disconnection from something positive and divine, and brings upon us the concept of like attracts like. So if we are negative, we attract negative. And there are spirits, lesser spirits, that are punishers and that cause problems and that cause confusion and make things worse. In the Chaldean oracles, these were known as dogs. They were called dogs. And they represent a lot of times spirits of the dead that are angry or upset that they are not able to be material beings anymore and they're trapped. And this goes very deeply, and we're going to do a whole lot of talk shows on these different concepts and how they fit into our belief system and how they manifest themselves. But your Theoi, as you connect to them, that divine light enters inside of you and pushes out all of this negative to where nothing can touch you. You are protected. The negative cannot exist inside of a positive place. It will always be on the outskirts. And so we look at that as a manifestation. You know, all of these things manifest in the physical world, in the mental world, in the emotional world. These are all different manifestations of different energies that we choose to attune ourselves to. And if you choose to be a negative person, if you choose to focus on all the bad things that happen to you and choose not to try to find the positive that exists outside of you and attune to that, you will be overwhelmed and overcome with all of these problems. And I really feel that that's a huge thing that's affecting our society today is people are focused so much on the negative, and I'm guilty of it as well. We had that conversation earlier. I said I had to stay off the internet for a while because the negative there was starting to affect me and making me turn negative. I was allowing myself to be attuned to the negative. Let me say that. I don't want to blame it on anyone other than myself, because ultimately your state of mind is your own doing. And how you choose to react to the world is what determines your reality. So if you choose to make negative things the center of your universe, then it's going to affect everything that revolves around you. If you choose to put the positive in the center, then negative things will revolve around you, but they're going to come and go. And the more positive you have, the more light you shine, the more those negative things are going to be pushed way out of orbit. And eventually they're not going to affect you anymore. And that's something that that I've seen happen. I've seen it happen with you, with Justin. I've seen it happen with him. You know, if anybody had met him, what has it been, 10 years now, huh? Yeah, it's been over 10 years. If they'd have met him 10 years ago, they wouldn't recognize the person that he is today. And if anybody had met me 20 years ago, they wouldn't have recognized the person that I am today. Because these energies have changed us, they've evolved us, and we're better off because of it. Not saying that we're perfect, because we're definitely not, but we are striving towards that perfection as much as possible, and we'll continue to do it until I'm no longer a physical being, you know. And I will do everything in my power to help elevate anybody who wants to be elevated through these methods. And these methods have been tested and proven as far as I'm concerned. I've seen them transform people's lives in ways that they couldn't even imagine. And it's a blessing for me, I feel, and I know you're feeling it now as a teacher. Justin is now teaching and understands that when you see that student, that neophyte, finally make that connection, when the information clicks and they have what we call the mystical aha, where the world starts to make a lot more sense to them all of a sudden. You can physically feel the shift in energy that happens. You can feel it happen, and you watch it, the room actually gets lighter. It's a physical manifestation of this divine light. It comes out, and that's the moment you see the change, and it makes all of the struggle and all of the things that we've had to go through to get to our level of understanding, makes it worth it. Just in that fraction of a second to watch somebody make that realization for the first time and watch all of the puzzle pieces fall together, and they get a glimpse of what the corner of that puzzle looks like, and they get a better idea of what the big puzzle is going to look like when it's finished, and it just drives them, and they just keep going. They just keep pushing, and then it snowballs from there. So all of that wonderful stuff starts with one simple, 5-minute devotion every day. 5 minutes of your morning or your evening. Some people do it in the morning and the evening. They do it twice a day. Some people do it 3 times a day, because the energy becomes addictive. And we've got about 60 seconds left, so we're going to leave off on that. But if anybody's interested in Church of Thessaly and what we do, you can find us on Facebook. The links are in the episode the episode descriptions on Blog Talk Radio website, and you can find us there, or you can tune in again every Sunday at 6 o'clock, and we will talk more and more about our concepts. We'll also have guest speakers periodically to come in and talk about different books and topics. So stay tuned and stay in touch, and do your daily devotions. If you're at the Thessalian, listen in. Do your daily devotions. Oh, and by the way, Bobby, I saw that picture. It's a really nice turtle back there. So, yeah, let's make that happen.